Currently looking at myself. I move myself here. I try to think of how to handle this. I have footage with bad audio that I want to go over again, but speaking in a way you'll be able to understand me, or not understand me, but hear me, because think of how to handle this. I believe I am coming in just fine right now, but I'm not going to play with the settings. I'm not going to tinker while I'm live on stream, because what happens, I'll move my mic, just touch my mic, all I'll do, and it won't work for the rest of the stream, or it'll just be cutting out intermittently, and I just happen to not hear it. Now let me go rewind this a little bit. I don't want to get too far ahead, because what I'm looking at here is Khan Yunis in Southern Gaza, and we're currently looking at what it would appear to be a lot of devastation, airstrikes, everything that hits that causes glass to erupt. Because one of the biggest defining features of a first world country is the amount of glass. See it in Beirut after the terrible explosions that have occurred there. The result of the storage of, well, I don't want to get into that. That's for more professionals. And the kind of resolution that we look at here isn't very high, but when you destroy a few thousand buildings in an area within a few weeks, it shows up relatively well on satellite. And currently I'm showing the pattern of bulldozers and tanks with dozer attachments that are currently making a lot of space available, where they will probably insert a whole bunch more settlements. I'm just drawing arrows in different positionings that I can see tracks, tank tracks or bulldozer tracks. Either way, it is no different which machine is doing the bulldozing and pushing of the material around. And I do ask frequently in this video, do the Israelis check the debris when they are pushing it around for remains? I haven't heard of any such claim. The only claim of testing dead bodies I've seen are the graves that have been dug up by Israeli defensive forces to check to see if they are, in fact, dead captives. Dead of Israeli captives. Really ghoulish behavior. There's absolutely no justification for digging up the graves in a cemetery and literally rolling over it. It is decimation, but this is a far southeastern city, southeast of Khan Yunis, right up to the border wall. You say some 30 to 40% of that area is just devastated, but so is much of Khan Yunis, as we can see here. The less red that we're seeing, more devastation, more destruction, but more tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that are on foot under the open sky. It's just only outside. Israeli keep tearing down roofs. There's nowhere else to support a family. There's no more warmth. There's no more food. kids are reportedly walking around begging for scraps. And the water, even for the food that are given as a result of aid, guarantee it has to be mixed with water some way, or it's dehydrated and it needs water to be able to become edible. They do not have clean drinking water anywhere in the Gaza Strip. Over 700,000 diseases have been recorded. This can turn into a giant plague, because not only is this water that they're using on the ground where their feet are, the bodies that are buried near the hospitals are shallow graves too. This can become very terrible very quickly. And what I'm showing here is bulldozers. Bulldozers just pushing around society, as they have been for years. But never have I had tracks and the before and after show up so tragically on satellite. I gotta be careful. I don't want to accidentally show myself too much from behind myself and it looks like some kind of weird ghosting image, but I will make do. I'm setting this up here. A series of hospitals. I had the map up earlier. See, Al Jazeera has a live tracker. I will come back to this. Killed at least 27,131 people, including more than 11,500 children, 8,000 women, more than 66,000 injured, over 8,000 being children, over 6,000 being women, and 8,000 missing. Now that 8,000 missing part is kind of macabre, because these areas that we see Israel bulldozing, do you think they're checking for remains before they pile it up in another area? 8,000 missing. That could be people in a hospital that are unable to speak, or there's just no communication to get word around in Gaza, as there's no communications at all going around. There's misinformation and disinformation based on where to go and where is safe. But it's not enough just to be safe. There's no temporary solution here. What is Israel's main objective in this war? I thought it was to put an end to Hamas, but is Hamas only made up of Palestinian people? It seems an abhorrent example of collective punishment on so many different levels, from the UN raw funding cut to the constant bombardments of every minute bombs are dropping on people that have less than nothing. They're not fighting back with weapons and arms in the street. They're running away. They run away from these issues, from these problems, mostly the military. You see the military, they know two things are going to happen. One, the military is going to separate the men from the women and children. Women and children go off into an area that but be far enough away from the men that if they are executed, people they were just with will immediately know, and then a tank will fire a shell into the building at them. It just, there's too many stories of exactly just like this happening. It's peering into a very dark period of humanity for not just allowing this to happen, but not to go along with any ceasefire or any deal to release more captives. There's been over 6,000 arrests in the West Bank. This is from a few months ago, but I imagine this would be no, this is a, it doesn't say the arrest for occupied West Bank. We could be on the look to see over 1 million Palestinian deaths as a result of the economic stranglehold, using starvation as a weapon, and separating men from the women and the children, separating families, of course, and the absolute rampant destruction that is being waged in this war on the people of Gaza. Some 60 to 70% of residences in Gaza are destroyed. More than that, it's unsafe to inhabit due to the surrounding buildings being in such unlivable circumstances it might find itself. These buildings eventually collapse, topple over, or they might be hit again. Regardless, it is a huge proportion of land that is being pushed around and cleared. This is systematic. There is nothing accidental about this. They're using precision weapons and they're using bulldozers based on an area that they've cleared out. Does that mean they clear out the possible remains in the rubble? Probably not. There's a lot of excuses for it, but mostly they just report them as missing. But this is grotesque, that all these lives that have been lost in this rubble, never getting the peace and silence that their families would need. Right now, nobody really knows anything inside Gaza because communication and the amount of people that are literally on foot under the open sky all day have nowhere to go anymore. Northern Gaza was evacuated, and that's some 500,000 people, I believe. You take, let's say, 700,000 people, and you cram them in an area that's already densely packed, the most densely packed state or country is Gaza. You go from northern Gaza and you put in hundreds of thousands of suffering people that are horribly suffering in circumstances that, to me, on a long-term scale, and when I say long-term, I'm talking about in months, because when these people have nothing and they're only been given tiny amounts of flour to make bread, babies dying holding that bread, it is not fair. 180 women each day continue to give birth in Gaza. It gets very dark from here. Because at what point is somebody absolved of their family, their parents, their friends later on? Who's punishing these babies? And why? Why is Israel allowing these women to have babies anyway? They're calling for genocide, they're committing genocide. Oh, that's right. Taking out the hospitals, pharmacies, medical establishments, clinics. It just goes on and on and on. And these statistics of how many thousands of pregnant women there are in Gaza compared to their daily need of treatment of their expecting child. Instead, they have to fight and scrape together meager amounts of food to be able to feed themselves right now. Malnutrition is a very horrifying truth. It's a very terrible weapon to use against newborn babies, especially, because they have had no say in this war. They did not deserve to be born into a life that is being taken away. I have no other way to describe it besides being that their livelihoods, their right to exist, has been taken away. They have nowhere to stay. Even in the hospitals, where the few that would remain that are functioning, that would be able to support babies, how long can they keep up a child, an infant, a baby, months old, weeks old, outside of the hospital in the deplorable conditions that people are finding themselves in? Besides malnutrition, but waterborne diseases are huge right now throughout Gaza. And this isn't a question about their immune system. Their immune system is completely wrecked too early to even really consider, well, there might be a chance. No. The babies that are born aren't hardened for some reason. They're not robust, resilient, just because they're being born into a war zone, that they're not going to react, physically be able to adapt. Well, these are babies. Every time that there is a hospital that loses its power, or its fuel tank is being damaged, that explodes, these are more than just lives. It's safety, it's security, knowing that if you are sick, you can go to a hospital, you can see a doctor. Here, there is no going to the doctor, seeing a doctor. As stressful as it is to discuss these ramifications to society, a society that's been thrust upon itself so many times of war and chaos, destruction, and through all this, the children suffer the most of all ages. From the time they are first born to, let's say, old enough to drive. You see this far too much is going away. These are residences, these are homes, buildings, properties for businesses, and it's all being taken down and pushed, and it's being pushed even further back than before. these areas that I look at near and around Khan Yunis, at the different refugee camps going throughout central Gaza here. It is, wow, it still is shocking, even having seen it earlier, the changes to just how quickly Gaza changes in just a few short weeks. From airstrikes, tank shelling, mortar fire, and you have just bombs, artillery striking. This in an area, fire might start, buildings will collapse, people will be forced to move away. But to think that people are already moving away from these buildings by the time they're falling apart is madness. There is nowhere to go. It is worse than havoc. These people have minus some place to go. Not that we see that they're speeding things up for any reason in particular. They're just reassigning operations, and they might start back up in IDF might start back up in the north, in northern Gaza again soon, after having evacuated so much of it. I really can't hear myself on this stream. That's really unfortunate. I have my microphone set at a very low level. Don't know why. It's not like I would have to speak so much louder for it to hear me that way in the first place. It's just not going to pick up. But hopefully this has been a much better experience, a much better listening experience, I should say, while we are exploring Khan Yunis, Gaza Strip, Southern Gaza Strip, to Central Gaza. Northern Gaza, I also look at in this video. It's not nearly as dramatic as the satellite imagery from Khan Yunis is. But here you can see I'm pointing out where the tracks, you can see actual tracks, tank tracks probably. It is madness. Let me skip ahead a little bit. I'm still in the area, I believe, in a minute or two. This is decimation we're seeing here. me speed up ahead a little bit. Yeah, I just wanted to record in a stream going over this content that it was difficult to hear me begin with. And from what I'm hearing, it's been much better. Although I do worry if you can hear my keyboard and mouse too much. I'm looking at an airstrike here. Let me speed up ahead a little bit. Yeah, it's much better audio. I really hope that the quality of the audio is coming through and it is not lost. I seem to have just always peered into my streams at times where I could hear myself. I never really listened to the streams long enough to find those moments of frustration and cutting in and out. So hopefully this works out better. Looking at an airstrike. Yes. I don't want to say that it's louder on the stream, but I can hear myself without boosting the volume. That's good. I have this volume boosted on the stream I'm watching that we just did, and I can barely hear myself talk. Usually I just wait for these they're curve bars, step bars, level meter, that's too much. Step level meter, that's too much. Bars. Bars. I'm gonna go back to curved. Okay. Still can't believe just the I had to have been doing something wrong, but I'm not sure what. I tried too many things at once, and something might have broke, I guess. Because I talk about these tread wounds on this land. It's a tread from bulldozers, a tread from tanks, other military vehicles that would have treads, that APCs, any armored personnel carrier, any of these. So it's not just like, oh, there's tracks, it has to be a bulldozer, but you can see it's kind of hard to say because it's a ridiculous amount of debris that's being brought down, pulled down, and pushed around. Very important to say is pulled down. And this right here, we're just looking at a time lapse of what appears to be 80% of the settlement. It's just, you know, there's not like a river that runs through Gaza. They're very restricted in the waters, and people are finding water in places that are broken pipes or pipes that have been broken into. Either way, the plumbing's not working. The problem is that when it floods, all the dirty water and sewage from the surface runs down into these pipes later because there's no way to really close them properly. You're not getting that pressure back, and it's not the cleanest water to begin with. Very, very tragic cycle that loops, that all of it since the beginning of these assaults in this war on Hamas and Palestine. It's been water and starvation. There's been a lack of healthy hydration, a lack of water to be able to work the food. So if you get a lot of freeze-dried, dehydrated foods, you'd be able to properly hydrate them to safely eat them. That isn't happening. People are getting jugs of whatever and just submerging them into water. At this point, it's at their feet because it's flooding so bad. It's the way that Gaza has been designed, with such high walls all over the place. There's no river that runs through here. When Gaza floods, it's past the ankles, and it's difficult to get anywhere. But when you're living in a tent on the ground, a foot of water is going to mean the difference between everything you have and own is now completely submerged or soaked in water. There's nothing you can do about it. You're gonna try to hold it for hours on end. It's a nightmare scenario that just keeps getting worse as there's no food, there's no aid. Trucks that get through there barely much of anything because you're just giving to the people of Rafah that are immediately adjacent to the border from Egypt. But those trucks don't make it to Khan Yunis. You're not getting over 1 million people that are there north. And what we see here is just normal satellite image of color. This isn't false color. This isn't any special trick. This is as the satellite takes it in true color and processing it, you're able to see the complete decimation that the people find themselves around. Nowhere to go anymore. It is perilous. And it is difficult to find an area of Gaza that isn't devastated by war and false. I do hope this audio has been much better this time around. I might be pushing that red line a little bit with the volume, but I do have to make it a point that I can trust the viewer properly adjust the volume to their own listening needs instead of always worrying that I'm going to blast somebody's eardrums out by speaking. Now that I know that I can be more comfortable doing that, this hopefully shouldn't be another occurrence, because it is quite a drag to see, you know, an hour plus of content that it's difficult to hear me, and I'm talking directly into the microphone, but it's not picking me up. I didn't have it properly configured. It's completely my fault, but I do appreciate the feedback for the people that have commented about their inability to hear me, and it took a little bit to figure it out. But I believe my settings now are working, and probably a little too well. Don't want to be able to hear just everything. If TV's playing in the other room, I don't want to be able to get a copyright strike because there's a theme song on TV that can be heard. It doesn't really happen, but consider these things as real possibilities. Forward a little bit. This is an area that's in the southeast from Khan Yunis. Just elimination. Every one of these dots is a building, foundation, property, lawn, grass, whatever. That makes up a society. Cemeteries, hospitals, pharmacies, clinics, drugstores, you know, just everything you would expect in a modern working city. But when aid is not being able to get through for months at a time, people become desperate. It does not make them villains. And it doesn't mean that we should punish everyone as a result of the actions of few. A lot of examples of why collective punishment is a terrible idea. The world didn't learn it whenever it punished South Africa for a would-be variant that was supposed to be so much worse. It turns out that not many people in South Africa actually did die from COVID. So South Africa still has a bone to pick with a lot of different countries in the world as a result of, especially America, I would imagine, for suggesting that everybody had to coordinate to wall off South Africa when no other country, especially even early on in the pandemic, had a rush to block visitors, tourists. What we're seeing here is terrifying. It's city blocks worth of buildings, city blocks of establishments, places of warmth for people, and safety and security because you have a roof over your head and it's not just outside. But when there is just outside and look around and just either rubble, people, either piles of people alive or people piled together for warmth. But with the amount of diseases, just having to use the bathroom, you're surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people that are faced with the same crisis as you. What are you supposed to do? Sorry, I hit my mic. Okay. Well, I just wanted to go over this information again. I think I did just that with my microphone reacting positively. I can still hear myself talk. Can't be worried about the keyboard and mouse too much because it is difficult. I type really fast. I can type over 200 words per minute. Very fast typing. Alright, well, I thank you for watching. Please, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the stream. It helps me out immensely. Now, where was I? Yeah, he's still talking. But it is getting late. I think I'll call this here. I think with these audio settings and with the microphone set up now, we shouldn't have problems going forward, and these the meter readings should be a lot more trustworthy. Again, thank you for watching.